Welcome to Michael's Musings on Music. We continue our exploration of music theory with a look at intervals. An interval is the distance between two musical pitches, how much higher or lower one pitch is to another. They are the building blocks of chords and chord progressions. An interval is identified by two things, its quantity and its quality. The quantity is how far apart the notes are. When the notes are on a staff, we simply count the lines and spaces between the notes, including the lines or spaces that the notes are on. So here we see two intervals, and to find out the quantity of each, we just count the lines and spaces. So for the top one, we count 1, 2, 3, so that is an interval of a third. For the bottom example, there are 6 lines and spaces between the notes, so it is a sixth. But quantity doesn't tell the whole story. These are all intervals of a fifth. There are 5 lines and spaces between each of the two notes, but they all sound completely different. They have different qualities. When it comes to interval quality, we handle seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths one way, and unison, fourth, fifth, and octave another. Unison, fourths, fifths, and octaves are pure, extremely consonant-sounding intervals, so we call them perfect. A perfect unison, which is the same note. A perfect octave, because it's the same note, only higher. Now the other class of intervals, the seconds, the thirds, the sixths, and sevenths, can either be major or minor. This is a major third, C to E. This is what it looks like on the keyboard. It sounds like this. This example is a minor third because the flat flattens or lowers the top note by 1 semitone or half step, which makes the interval a little narrower. Looks like this on the keyboard and sounds like this. Minor third. Major third, minor third. It's a semitone from the E to the E flat. It's the same principle with perfect intervals. Example A is a perfect fifth. Here it is on the keyboard, C to G. Sounds like that. In example B, we have sharpened the top note and therefore raised it by a semitone. So the interval has become slightly wider. C to G sharp now. We call this an augmented fifth. Perfect fifth, augmented fifth. So any perfect interval that we widen by a semitone is called augmented. Conversely, in example C, we have a flattened or lowered the top note by a semitone, therefore making the interval a little more narrow. We call that a diminished fifth. So any perfect interval that we narrow by a semitone is called diminished. So perfect fifth, augmented fifth, diminished fifth. The diminished fifth specifically has a very infamous place in the history of music because of its extreme dissonance. In the Middle Ages, it was known as the devil's interval, and it was forbidden in music compositions right up until the 18th century. Next time, we will expand this discussion of intervals when we talk about chords.